was weak, insignificant, forgotten. But when the stars turned cold, humanity reminded them who we really are. They feared our weapons. They should have feared our will. The once vibrant world of Novastra now lies in ruin. What was once an Earth-aligned colony, a symbol of humanity's expansion into the stars, is now a twisted battlefield, scarred by endless war. The sun hangs low in the sky, casting a fiery red glow over the shattered cities. Above, orbital debris from Earth's broken defenses falls like meteors, burning through the atmosphere in a fiery descent. On the ground, the rumble of alien war machines fills the air, each step they take shaking the earth beneath them. Humanity's final stand is unfolding here. What was once a thriving hub of commerce, culture, and life is now nothing more than a smoking ruin. The ground trembles with the thudding of Zithari war machines, towering beasts that march relentlessly through the remains of Earth's last bastion. The Zithari, an empire born from cruelty and conquest, have pushed humanity to the very edge. And now, on this charred landscape, the last remnants of Earth's military, a group of weary soldiers prepare to face their ultimate test. Their weapons, once strong and proud, are useless against the overwhelming force of the alien invaders. There's no more time for strategy or counterattacks. The soldiers, hardened by years of relentless combat, are all that remain between the Zithari and total victory. The city's ruins echo with the remnants of past battles, as human survivors scramble in the shadows, waiting for the inevitable. In the distance, the sound of a massive Zithari war machine thunders closer. Its legs crack the earth beneath it, each step a reminder of how small and fragile humanity feels in the face of such power. Yet, as the sky darkens with the wreckage of fallen ships, there's one thing the Zithari have yet to learn. While they may have the weapons, humanity has something far more dangerous, an unbreakable will to survive. Sergeant Mara Hale stands at the center of the battlefield, the weight of her leadership pressing down on her shoulders. Her once pristine uniform is torn and covered in dirt, a patchwork of scars and wear that tell the story of a soldier who has seen too much. Her eyes, however, burn with a cold fire, unyielding despite the odds. She stands alone, apart from the others, her posture a mixture of battle-hardened resolve and quiet grief. Her squad, the last of humanity's defenders, is battered and broken, a group of soldiers who have lost everything, family, friends, homes, yet still, they fight. Mero's eyes scan the ruins of the battlefield, her mind working faster than her heart can keep up. These soldiers, her soldiers, look to her for strength, for guidance. But inside, Mero knows the truth. They are all running on empty. Her own tank is close to full empty. Yet her voice, strong and unwavering, echoes across the squad. "Stay strong," she calls out, her voice cutting through the thick air of destruction. "We fight for the last piece of Earth. We fight for those who will never see another sunrise." Her words are not just for the squad, they are for herself. She is the last tether, the last spark of hope. The resistance has been crumbling for months, and Mara is tired. She has seen the destruction, the bloodshed. She has led her squad through hell, and yet here they are, fighting against impossible odds. Despite the overwhelming enemy, the silence of retreat, Mara remains unbroken. She can't afford to fall apart, not now.
And so she steels herself. The weight of Earth's survival rests in her hands, and Mara Hale will carry it until the last breath. The sky flickers, then it goes black. It starts slowly, an eerie silence. No drones, no orbital platforms, no automated defenses. Mara watches in disbelief as the last remnants of Earth's technological might crumble before her eyes. Her heart races, her instincts scream at her to move, to act, to fight. But there's nothing left to fight with. The Zithari have unleashed their EMP virus, and with it, Earth's machines fall silent. The towering, battle-tested war machines that once stood as the last bastion of hope are now little more than husks. Useless metal carcasses littering the battlefield. The technology that humanity had relied upon for so long is now dead, gone. Mara watches as her soldiers scramble in the chaos. Without their weapons, their drones, their orbital defense systems, humanity is now just flesh and bone. No more automated turrets, no more bombs, no more missiles, just humans against the might of the Zythari. The enemy forces are relentless. As Zythari soldiers advance, Mara grits her teeth. They may have disabled their weapons, but they have not destroyed their spirit. She can hear the pounding of the enemy footsteps as the Zythari march forward, ready to wipe out the last of Earth's resistance. "We might be powerless," Mara mutters under her breath, "but we're not dead yet." The line is breaking. Mara watches as the first of her soldiers fall, one by one. Their weapons useless, their bodies torn apart by the sheer overwhelming force of the Zythari. The human resistance is fractured, disorganized. Her soldiers fight back, desperate, but the hope they once had is fading, crushed beneath the weight of the enemy's advance. Mara stands firm, her eyes locked onto the line that's now been pushed back to a last desperate pocket of survivors. The sky above is ablaze with the wreckage of the last defense satellites, fire streaking across the darkening sky as they fall from orbit. Their final descent a reminder of how far humanity has fallen. But Mara doesn't flinch. She stands tall, shoulders squared. Her voice cuts through the din of battle, calm yet resolute. "Do not fall back," she commands. "Stand your ground." Her squad, battered and broken, looks to her. There is no retreat. There is no surrender. Not now. The humans are outgunned, outmanned, and the enemy is closing in. But Mara has seen too much to let this be the end. She steps forward and her soldiers follow, pulling themselves from the rubble, ready for one final stand. This is not just a fight for survival anymore. This is a fight for humanity's soul. The Zythari may have their weapons, their technology, but humanity has something they'll never understand: the will to never give up. The Zythari advance continues without hesitation. Their massive war machines crush everything in their path, their steps relentless as they march over the decimated world of Novastra. The once proud planet is nothing but a battlefield now, reduced to ash and bone. But what the Zythari don't know is that they've underestimated something far more dangerous than any weapon: the will of humanity. Mara watches as the enemy draws closer, the sound of their war machines like thunder, but she doesn't falter, she doesn't waver. "Let them come," she mutters under her breath, her voice a quiet promise to the soldiers who remained by her side. Despite their broken bodies, their depleted spirits, humanity's last defenders are not afraid. The Zythari may have the firepower, but humanity has the will to survive. And they will not go down without making the Zythari regret their conquest. The Zythari commanders broadcast their demand for surrender across the battlefield. The message is cold, calculated, devoid of mercy. The terms are clear: submit or face total annihilation. Mara stands in front of her soldiers, her eyes cold as the Zythari speak. Their offer is simple, their tone full of disdain. The humans are nothing but insects, to be crushed without hesitation. They believe they've already won. But Mara Hale's voice rings out loud and clear: "We don't surrender." The squad rallies around her. Their weapons may be gone, but their spirit has never been stronger. As the Zythari forces close in, ready to deliver the final blow, Mara's quiet words cut through the air. "Let them come. This battle will be fought not with weapons, but with the heart and soul of humanity. And no matter the cost, they will never give up." The Zythari Empire has set its eyes on Earth, a race of advanced, cold, calculating aliens with superior technology. The Zythari had conquered countless planets. To them, Earth is just another colony to subdue, another species to dominate. Their fleet, massive and imposing, descends from the black sky, obscuring the sun, casting long, menacing shadows over Earth's last stronghold. The Zythari commanders, confident in their technological superiority, make no effort to hide their arrogance. They believe victory is inevitable, a formality. The power grids of Earth flicker and die, communications jammed, and all orbital reinforcements blocked by an impenetrable force field. With the technological might of their war machines, they roll across barren fields, prepared to eradicate the last traces of human resistance. In their minds, the conquest has already been decided. The Zythari commanders glance at their displays, checking for signs of organized opposition. There is none. Their soldiers prepare to land, eagerly anticipating an easy occupation. But what they don't realize is that Earth's greatest strength is not in its machines, but in the human spirit, a force they have yet to understand. Sergeant Mara Hale stands at the edge of a cliff, her boots sinking into the cold earth beneath her. The survivors of Earth military are gathered behind her, looking out at the approaching Zythari forces. The once mighty human arsenal, the drones, the tanks, the power armor, all of it is gone, destroyed in the early stages of the invasion. What remains is the raw determination of a few hundred survivors who have no choice but to fight with what little they have. They are outgunned, outnumbered, and surrounded, but they have nowhere to retreat. The human survivors, stripped of their advanced technology, stand at the foot of Ashglass Ridge, a natural fortress that will serve as their final line of defense. Sergeant Hale knows the odds are slim. It would be easier to surrender, to give up the fight. But that's not who humanity is. She turns to her soldiers, her voice steady despite the uncertainty. We may not have the weapons we used to, but we still have our will, and that's enough to make them bleed. The survivors, though exhausted and broken, exchange glances of determination. No one speaks, but they know what's at stake. The fight isn't over yet, not while they still breathe. The night is dark, cold wind cutting across the mountain ridges. The survivors huddled around makeshift campfires, their faces grim. They don't have the tools of war anymore, but they have ingenuity. And that, Sergeant Hale knows, is their only hope. With whatever materials they can find, scrap metal, sharpened mining tools, and old, unused explosives, they begin to craft traps, sharpen blades, and reinforce their defenses. It's a crude, desperate attempt, but it's all they have. Hale paces among them, offering words of encouragement. We may not have drones, but we have the land. We may not have power armor, but we have the element of surprise. Each survivor, once a soldier trained for high-tech warfare, is now reduced to a guerrilla fighter, crafting weapons from raw necessity. The Zythari may have machines, but the humans have resourcefulness, adaptability, and an unshakable will to survive. Hale oversees it all, her sharp eyes scanning the survivors, ensuring every trap is set, every stone turned. There's no turning back now. This is their stand. The trap is set. A Zythari scouting party, arrogant in their belief that the humans are defeated, marches into the area surrounding Ashglass Ridge. They do not anticipate an ambush. They do not expect any resistance from the broken humans. As the Zythari approach, the air is thick with tension. Sergeant Hale gives a sharp nod. The humans spring into action. Explosions tear through the ground, sending Zythari soldiers tumbling into the air. The remaining scouts are caught in a frenzy of chaos as homemade grenades explode around them, sending jagged shrapnel into the unsuspecting invaders. The battle is short but brutal. Zythari soldiers fall, their technological advantage no match for the primal tenacity of human warriors. In the chaos, Hale's voice cuts through the confusion. Don't let them regroup. Finish what we started. The humans, using only the most basic of tools, overwhelm the Zythari. It's a shocking victory, a tiny spark of hope. The invaders had underestimated humanity, and it cost them dearly. For a brief moment, the survivors stand victorious. They're not defeated. Not yet. The Zythari commanders stare at their monitors in disbelief. Their forces, initially expected to crush the humans, have been routed in a mere skirmish. The invaders' superiority is no longer as certain as it once was. Panic begins to ripple through their ranks. Zythari soldiers trained for absolute dominance are now facing an enemy who won't back down, an enemy they can't understand. The humans have no technology, no military force, yet they are fighting with a ferocity that defies logic. Commander Zether, one of the Zythari leaders, slams his fist against the console. How are they still fighting? What's driving them? They should have surrendered by now. There's no answer. The humans have created chaos in the ranks, and the Zythri are scrambling to adapt, struggling to comprehend an enemy that fights not with machines, but with something more insidious, their unwavering will. Amidst the chaos of the next attack, young recruit Cam Torres stumbles over a fallen Zythari soldier. His hands are trembling, his body slick with sweat and dirt. He looks at Sergeant Hale, his voice barely a whisper. How can we keep going? We don't have the weapons, we don't have the technology. How can we possibly win? His words cut through the silence, the doubt in his voice mirroring what many of the survivors feel. They have no answers. They're fighting with nothing but scraps, with nothing but their will to survive. Sergeant Hale looks at him, her expression hardening. We're not gonna win because of our weapons, Cam. We're gonna win because we refuse to lose. Her words are a stark reminder to all of them. Victory is no longer about power, it's about perseverance. Sergeant Hale's words echo in the cold night air, rallying the survivors. We're the weapons now. Our resolve is our weapon. Our ability to adapt, to fight, to never give up is our weapon. Her eyes fierce and filled with purpose, burned with determination as she speaks. They think they can break us. They think they can crush us, but they don't understand what makes us human. We fight because we have to, and we'll keep fighting until we win. Her speech is more than just words. It's a call to arms, a declaration that humanity's greatest weapon is its unyielding spirit. The survivors stand straighter, their fear melting away in the face of Hale's unshakable conviction. They may be outnumbered, outgunned, and outclassed, but they are not out of the fight. The Zythari continued their advance, growing increasingly frustrated. They've never faced an enemy like this, an enemy who fights without reason, without fear. Every encounter brings more questions than answers. Why do the humans keep fighting? Why don't they break under the weight of the invasion? The Zythari began to understand that they had underestimated the human element, the one thing they can never calculate. The Zythari soldiers are warriors of precision and efficiency, but humanity's greatest weapon is something they cannot program: the ability to fight, to adapt, and to never give up. As the Zythari struggled to comprehend the humans' resistance, their once confident strategy began to crumble. The tide of the war has shifted, and now the Zythari have to face a new enemy, one they cannot defeat with technology alone. The desert winds howled across the barren landscape, a stark reminder of the devastation left behind by the Zythari invasion. Yet, amid the chaos and ruin, a legend began to take shape. Hale's unit, once a dwindling group of survivors, had become something far more terrifying to their enemies, a myth, a ghost that could not be caught or killed. The Zythari, who had initially believed their technological superiority would crush humanity's will, began to encounter the impossible, scattered human resistance in places no one expected, striking with deadly precision, and then vanishing without a trace. The survivors, led by Sergeant Hale, had perfected the art of disappearing into the wasteland. Their strikes were calculated and efficient. Zythari soldiers, once confident in their dominance, began to question whether they were facing mere humans or something more, something driven by an unstoppable will beyond the reach of reason. Word of Hale's squad spread like wildfire. Among the Zythari, whispers of the last battalion started to permeate the ranks. Some speculated that the humans had gained access to alien technology. Others, more superstitious, feared they were encountering something not even the gods of their species could defeat. The terror was palpable as the Zythari began to wonder, had they truly crushed humanity, or had they inadvertently created a new insidious threat? The truth was simpler and far more terrifying. The human will to fight no matter the cost defied all logic, and this, more than any weapon, made Hale's unit a force to be reckoned with. Archivist Thelen sat in his sterile, dimly lit quarters surrounded by the data of countless species and civilizations. His role as a linguist and psychologist for the Zythari High Command had brought him into contact with various enemy cultures. each one conforming to a predictable set of behaviors. The humans, however, had shattered all his expectations. His reports were meticulous, detailing the effectiveness of the human resistance against the overwhelming power of the Zathari. But it was something deeper, something intangible that had begun to gnaw at him. The humans didn't fight to win, not in the traditional sense. They fought because they refused to lose. It wasn't about conquest or survival in the conventional way. Thelen realized with mounting unease that humanity's resistance was driven by an emotional defiance that no amount of technology or military strategy could comprehend. In his mind, Thelen replayed the countless encounters between the Zathari and these human soldiers. They were not interested in honor, in victory, or even in survival. No, they fought with an intensity that made no sense. It was a battle of wills, and the humans refused to break. Thelen's unease grew into a deep, unsettling curiosity. For the first time in his career, he found himself wondering if the Zathari were truly the superior force, or if the humans had something that made them invincible. The sound of a Zathari supply convoy exploded into the stillness of the night, the blast sending a cloud of dust and debris into the air. Sergeant Hale crouched in the shadows, her breath steady, every muscle tense. She had given the order, and now the humans had done what they did best: adapted, survived, and struck fear into their enemies. The convoy, once thought to be the lifeblood of the Zathari occupation, had been dismantled piece by piece. Hill's unit had planted explosives on their transport vehicles, rigged their food supplies with deadly traps, and sabotaged their communication networks. They had turned the Zathari's own technology against them, making the once dominant invaders vulnerable. The survivors moved like shadows, striking, vanishing, and leaving chaos in their wake. With limited resources, they made every action count. They adapted their tactics based on what they had, scavenging Zathari weapons and using them in ways the invaders had never anticipated. Human ingenuity was the only weapon they had left, and they wielded it with a brutal efficiency. The Zathari forces, accustomed to precision and overwhelming firepower, now found themselves battling an unpredictable and relentless force. And with every ambush, the reputation of Hale's unit grew. They were ghosts, nightmares, something that could not be contained no matter how hard the Zathari tried. Lieutenant Cayenne was the embodiment of Zathari coldness, logical, calculating, and ruthless. He had fought in countless campaigns, never questioning the necessity of his actions. But everything changed when he was captured during a raid by Hale's unit. At first, Guyan viewed the humans with contempt. They were weak, broken, their resistance nothing more than a fleeting nuisance. But as the days dragged on in captivity, he saw something that began to unsettle him, something he could not ignore. Hale's squad showed compassion. They tended to their wounded, yes, but they also tended to the Zathari soldiers they had captured. It was a quiet, respectful kind of treatment that Guyan had never seen before. His people fought with cold efficiency, indifferent to the suffering of others. The humans, on the other hand, risked everything to care for their enemies, even when it was not in their best interest. Guyan couldn't reconcile this. In his mind, it was a weakness, a fatal flaw. But in his heart, something began to stir. These humans, these monkeys as his superiors called them, were showing him something profound. Their humanity was their strength, not their weakness. And it was this realization that would slowly, quietly, begin to unravel everything Guyan had believed. The air was thick with tension as Sergeant Hale and Lieutenant Guyan stood face to face, separated only by the harsh, unforgiving desert winds. Guyan's voice was low, his eyes burning with a conflicted fury. "Your resistance," Guyan sneered, "is madness. You fight for nothing. For survival? Even that is a lost cause. You will die in this desert, all of you. What is the point of such sacrifice?" Hale's expression hardened. She stood tall, her voice steady, but with the fire of a woman who had seen too much death to fear it. "It's not about instinct, Guyan. It's about will. You think we fight because we have to? No, we fight because we choose to. You see, we're not fighting to win. We're fighting because we refuse to lose. Gaian's gaze flickered for a moment. Refuse to lose? That is not a strategy. That is madness. Hale stepped forward, her eyes locked onto his. It's not madness, Lieutenant. It's humanity. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Hale knew that Gaian's transformation, however small, had already begun. He could no longer see the humans as mere obstacles. They were something more, a force beyond reason, beyond strategy, and it terrified him. The sun beat down relentlessly on the desert landscape as Hale crouched beside Doris, who lay injured on the ground, his breath shallow and ragged. The Zithari drones were closing in. Every second counted. "Get up, Torres," Hale urged, her voice sharp. But Torres' leg had been torn apart in the last attack, and his strength was fading fast. Hale glanced toward the horizon. The Scythari were relentless. They would stop at nothing to finish what they had started. Yet, despite the odds, Hale wasn't going to leave Torres behind. "We make it, Torres. We will make it," she said, though she knew the odds were slim. With no time left for hesitation, she lifted him up, staggering under his weight as they moved forward into the desolate landscape. The journey was grueling, every step filled with the fear of being caught. Hill's leadership was a mix of desperation and determination, but above all, it was fueled by a refusal to give in. Despite the desert's unrelenting heat and the Scythari drones circling overhead, Hale and Torres managed to survive. Their bodies were battered, their resources nearly exhausted, but they held on, driven by something deeper than mere survival. They were not just evading death, they were defying it. The Scythari, who had thought their drones would be unstoppable, were left to grapple with an enemy they couldn't predict, couldn't defeat. Hale's belief in the human spirit had proven true. As long as they refused to give up, they could survive. And in surviving, they had shown the Scythari a truth they had never expected. Humanity was a force that could never be extinguished. The air is thick with tension as the Scythari prepare to deploy their deadliest weapon, mind shock bombs. The Scythari's objective isn't just to destroy humanity's forces, it's to fracture the very soul of the resistance. These bombs don't tear apart flesh, they tear apart willpower. On the surface of a distant colony, soldiers clutch their heads in agony as the bombs detonate overhead. A wave of psychic force cascades through the battlefield, shattering the resolve of every defender caught in its wake. Some collapse immediately, driven to madness by the overwhelming psychic intrusion. Others stagger, eyes wide with horror, as their once indomitable spirit cracks like fragile glass. The once proud human resistance, built from the core of humanity's resolve, begins to crumble under this assault. One by one, entire colonies fall silent. The screams of the dying are replaced by the silence of surrender. A ripple of despair spreads across the human lines, and it seems as though the very will to fight has been stolen. Humanity's greatest strength, its unyielding spirit, has been shattered. And with that, the future of the human race seems uncertain. But in the stillness that follows, a faint glimmer of resistance sparks in the hearts of those who refuse to surrender. Archivist Stellan stands in the war room of the Scythari command ship, his once calm demeanor now reflecting a mixture of fear and awe. The room is alive with tactical data, but his mind is elsewhere. The Scythari commanders are gathered, their arrogance almost palpable as they prepare to finalize their victory. The humans are beyond our comprehension, Stellan declares, his voice heavy with the truth he has come to understand too late. Their resistance is not driven by fear. Fear is something they've transcended. It's their will, their sheer willpower that drives them. We thought we could break them with mind shock bombs, but we were wrong. They are not just surviving, they are fighting with an unyielding desire to resist, not out of desperation, but because they will not be broken. The Zythari commanders exchange uncertain glances. Felon's warning cuts through their bravado like a knife, and for the first time, doubt creeps into their minds. The human spirit cannot be cracked, not by firepower, nor by psychological warfare. Echo Crater is a desolate place, a jagged expanse of rocky ground that stretches far into the horizon. It's here, at the very edge of humanity's last hope, that Hale and her soldiers prepare for the final stand. They are few, just 8 soldiers, but in the face of overwhelming odds, they have nothing to lose.
Hale's eyes scan the barren landscape, her sharp mind working quickly. They've been cornered, but they've learned that a cornered animal is at its most dangerous. Those soldiers work with a quiet, determined fury, scavenging metal debris and using the terrain to create makeshift traps. They know the Zythari will not come gently. "We make our last stand here," Hale declares, her voice calm but filled with an unshakable resolve. "Every inch of this ground is ours. We will not give it up without a fight." They set their traps, and the tension grows as each step brings them closer to the oncoming storm. It is not just a battle for survival. It is a statement. Humanity's spirit, its defiance, will not fade without a fight. As the Zythari close in, preparing for their final assaults, Hale takes a moment to do something unexpected. She activates a communications channel, open, public, and unfiltered. Her voice rings out, clear and defiant across the battlefield. "You feared our weapons," she says, her words piercing through the static. "You should have feared our will, because long after the last gun dies, we're still here and we're not kneeling."
Her words echo through the enemy ranks, reverberating like a challenge. The Zythari commanders pause, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. For a moment, they are not certain if they are hearing a threat or a prophecy. The soldiers in the field feel a surge of energy, a renewed sense of purpose. Hale's words are a spark, igniting the embers of defiance that had almost been extinguished. The first wave hits with terrifying force. The Zythari soldiers, tall and armed with advanced weaponry, charge across the crater. The ground trembles under the weight of their assault, but Hale's soldiers hold firm, their desperation fueling their resilience. The battle is brutal. The clash of weapons echoes through the crater. Explosions shatter the air. Hale's team fights with ferocity, utilizing every advantage. Scrap metal becomes armor, dirt and rock become shields. The Zythari are relentless, but so are the humans. Every shot fired, every piece of ground defended, comes with a cost. Yet the humans press on, driven by a singular purpose, to not only survive, but to show that they cannot and will not be defeated. Hale fights alongside her soldiers, her movements sharp and decisive. Despite the blood, the sweat, and the exhaustion, her spirit remains unyielding. Each swing of her weapon, each tactical maneuver, is a testament to humanity's defiance. In the chaos of battle, a figure steps out of the shadows. Lieutenant Kane, a Zythari soldier who had questioned his loyalty to his people. For months, he struggled with the brutality of his mission, the relentless slaughter of innocent humans. But in the midst of the battle, as the Zythari close in, Kane makes a choice. He drops his weapon and turns, running toward the human lines. It's a betrayal. His own people will never forgive him, but it is also a redemption. In the heat of the moment, he saves Torres, one of Hale's soldiers, who was pinned under fire. Kane's defection is a jarring moment for both sides. For the Zythari, it is an act of treason. For the humans, it is a symbol of defection, a powerful reminder that even in the face of an enemy, there is always room for choice. Kane's decision shifts the tide of the battle. It doesn't win the war, but it gives humanity a fighting chance, a chance they grasped with everything they have left. Hale is injured, A blast from the Zathari forces has shattered her leg, the pain radiating through her body like wildfire. Yet despite the agony, she refuses to retreat. She stares at her soldiers, her face bloodied but unbowed. "Do you want to die kneeling?" she asks, her voice raw, her words cutting through the pain. "Then fight. Fight for every inch of ground. Fight because we will not bend." The human soldiers rally around her. They see their leader broken but unyielding. It becomes a symbol. The fight is not for victory, but for dignity, for humanity's refusal to bow before an enemy. Her spirit, unbroken, pushes them forward. The battle rages on, but with every passing moment, Hale's legacy as the heart of the resistance grows. Her defiance becomes a symbol of humanity's will, and the soldiers fight not for survival alone, but for something much greater. The battle rages on, and despite the overwhelming force of the Zathari, humanity's resistance proves unrelenting. The Zathari, shocked by the tenacity of the human fighters, begin to pull back. They had expected to crush the resistance with their superior numbers and technology, but instead they are faced with something they cannot understand, a will that cannot be shattered. The Zathari commanders are left speechless. Their face is a mixture of disbelief and confusion. The battle is over, but the war is far from won. The Zathari have retreated, but they now know that humanity is not so easily defeated. And as the dust settles, Hale and her soldiers stand tall, battered but undefeated. The war is not over, but humanity's spirit has proven to be a force beyond reckoning. The Zathari fleet, once an unrelenting force, began to retreat across the multiple worlds they had attempted to conquer. From the moons of Vantir to the icy plains of Razian, their ships turned away, not because of their inability to defeat humanity, but because something far more terrifying had dawned on them. The Zathari, in all their advanced technology and overwhelming firepower, had never anticipated this. The ferocity of humanity's resistance was not something they could calculate. Their weapons, their tactics, their overwhelming numbers, none of it mattered. What truly terrified the Zathari was the sheer will of the humans, their refusal to bend, to yield, to be conquered. This was something they could not defeat, for it wasn't a weapon. It wasn't an army. It was a force of will, as old as human history itself, a power that lived in the hearts of every soldier, every civilian, every rebel who had stood against them. Across their war-torn fleet, commanders received orders to pull back. The retreat wasn't a failure, it was a strategic move born from fear, a fear that even their mighty weapons couldn't overcome. Humanity had shown them that no matter how much they conquered, no matter how many cities they razed or planets they burned, there was one thing the Zathari could never destroy: the human spirit. The Zathari, stunned and unnerved, watched as their mighty ships turned tail and fled into the stars, unable to comprehend the force that had driven them from the battlefield. What they didn't know, what they could never understand, was that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't a bomb, or a ship, or a fleet. It was their unyielding defiance. The Zathari had underestimated humanity, and now they were forced to retreat not out of weakness, but out of a profound and undeniable terror. Cain stood at the podium, his dark eyes filled with the weight of 1,000 regrets. He had once stood alongside these Zathari forces, believing in their cause, their strength. But now, on Earth's soil, he felt the gravity of his decision to defect. The Earth leaders, seated across from him, watched them with suspicion, their faces etched with both caution and curiosity. Cain had been a soldier, a Zathari commander. He had fought against humanity, and now he came to them not as an enemy, but as a desperate plea for peace. "Why now?" Commander Reyes asked, the hardened leader of Earth's forces, her voice a mix of suspicion and exhaustion. Cain swallowed hard, the shame of his past heavy on his chest. "Because," he began, his voice cracking, "I've seen what your people are capable of. I've seen your will, your unbreakable spirit. You fight not just with weapons, but with something more. Something the Zathari could never understand. I am here because I believe that the Zathari, as strong as they are, cannot defeat what your species has. I am here because I have come to respect you." The room was silent, the tension palpable. Kane's words hung in the air like the final plea of a man trying to redeem himself. His transformation was not just a personal shift, but a reflection of the profound impact humanity's resilience had on even their enemies. His defection, once thought of as betrayal, was now a symbol of a moral shift within the Zythari ranks.
He had hoped for peace, but deep inside, Kuhn knew that redemption was a long, painful road. His final act was not just a plea for an end to the bloodshed, it was a reflection of his belief in humanity's strength. The belief that even in the darkest times, humans could stand tall, refusing to bend. Hale lay on the cold metal floor of the battlefield, her body battered, broken, but her spirit unyielding. The war had taken its toll. Her limbs, once strong and sure, now barely moved. Blood pooled around her, a testament to the sacrifice she had made for the greater good. But it was her words, not her wounds, that had become the symbol of human resilience. "We are not finished," she had said before she collapsed. "Not while we're still breathing." Her words spread across the galaxy, whispered in hushed tones, shouted in defiance on distant planets. Hale was no longer just a soldier, she had become an icon. Her name was etched into every corner of human space, a beacon of hope for those who still believed that humanity could rise against the impossible. Her sacrifice, her final stand, had sparked something far greater than a military victory. It had ignited a cultural revolution, a spark that would light the way for generations to come. Hale's refusal to give up, to bend to the overwhelming might of the Zythari, had become a story that every human held close to their hearts. Her battle was not just for survival, it was a statement. Humanity could and would stand against the galaxy's greatest threats. In the years that followed, statues were erected in her honor, but it wasn't the statues that mattered. It was the spirit of her resistance that would live on forever, inspiring countless others to stand up, to fight, to defy. Across human space, the fires of rebellion sparked once again. The victory over the Zythari, though costly, had awakened something deep within humanity. Resistance cells, scattered and fractured just weeks before, now began to form new alliances, new bonds. The story of Hale's stand, her refusal to surrender, became the rallying cry for every cell that had once hid in the shadows. Even in the remnants of Earth's shattered cities, soldiers and civilians alike began to rebuild. But this was not just a rebuilding of infrastructure. It was a rebuilding of spirit, of belief. The humans, now aware of their own potential, knew they could overcome anything, even the impossible. And they would. One by one, worlds once under the boot of the Zythari now rose up, fueled by the belief that if humanity could win once, they could win again. It wasn't just about weapons or military strategy anymore. It was about the unwavering belief that human resolve could defeat anything. The war may have been over, but the fight was far from finished. Across human space, soldiers etched the letters FW into their armor. It was a simple insignia, but it spoke volumes. FW stood for Feared Our Weapons? The question echoed through every corner of the galaxy. The Zythari had feared humanity's advanced weaponry, but what they had truly underestimated was humanity's unyielding will.
The symbol spread like wildfire. It was carved into the metal of ships, onto the backs of soldiers, and even into the walls of rebel hideouts. The FW was not just a mark, it was a declaration. It was the embodiment of humanity's victory over the Zythari, a victory born not of technology or firepower, but of sheer willpower. Soldiers walked with their heads held high, knowing that their greatest weapon had nothing to do with guns or ships. It was their unbreakable spirit. FW was more than an insignia. It was a promise that humanity's greatest weapon was its resolve, and that nothing could ever extinguish it. The victory over the Zythari did more than just free humanity from the threat of annihilation. It changed the very fabric of human civilization. They should have feared our will became a mantra, not just a battle cry.
It was an ethos that resonated in every heart, on every planet, and in every home. Humanity's victory was not just the end of a war, it was the birth of something far more powerful. It was the birth of a new era, one where humanity's resilience would be its greatest strength. This was no longer a species at the mercy of the galaxy's ancient powers. Humanity had proven itself, not just as survivors, but as a force capable of standing against any threat. The cultural shift was profound. Leaders spoke of unity and strength, drawing inspiration from the unwavering defiance that had won the war. Technological advancements began to blossom in the wake of humanity's newfound confidence. And as Earth's allies watched from afar, they knew that humanity was no longer the underdog. They were the force to be reckoned with. The legend of humanity's victory would echo through the ages, an unstoppable legacy that would continue to inspire generations. The Zaithari had underestimated humanity's greatest weapon, and now they would learn the cost of that mistake. Humanity had proven that its spirit was unbreakable, and in the face of the galaxy's greatest threats, humanity would always rise again. The Echo Crater, once a battlefield soaked in blood and fire, now stands as a solemn testament to humanity's unbreakable spirit. The land is scarred, yet serene. No monuments of weaponry or armor rise here, no grand statues of triumphant generals. Instead, there's a simple stone, weathered and unassuming. A handprint is etched into its surface, the stone worn smooth by the passage of time. A soft wind stirs, carrying whispers of what came before. A plaque below the handprint reads, "She fought with nothing, and that was everything." It is a tribute not to the might of humanity's weapons, but to the strength of its will. The monument, stark in its simplicity, speaks volumes. It's not about the weaponry or the machinery of war. It's about the undying resolve of the human spirit. Here, in this quiet corner of a shattered world, the true power of humanity is immortalized, not in metal or fire, but in the mark of a hand that, against all odds, did not surrender. Years have passed since the final battle, but the world has not forgotten the woman who led them through the darkest days. Hail, the woman who stood unbroken before the Zaithari, now walks among the people, though none recognize her. Her face is hidden beneath a hood, her identity shrouded in secrecy. She moves through the Echo Crater, now a bustling hub of recovery, blending with the crowd. She passes shops, homes, children playing in the streets. No one knows her. Yet, there's an air about her, a silent grace. A child, no older than 10, notices her. The child looks up, eyes wide in silent recognition. Without a word, they raise their hand in salute. Hale stops for just a moment, meeting the child's gaze. The child smiles, a soft, innocent gesture, but to Hale, it is everything. It is a tribute to a legend that lives on, not in the loud parades or monuments, but in the quiet, everyday moments of a society rebuilt from the ashes.
As Hale walks on, she knows that her legacy is safe, not in grand speeches, but in the simple act of passing on the torch. The voice of Hale, soft yet powerful, breaks through the silence. It echoes, not just in the minds of the survivors, but in every corner of the human frontier. Weapons break, fire dies, but will burns forever. Her words resonate, timeless and unwavering. They carry with them the essence of everything humanity fought for.
Her voice, though no longer heard on the battlefield, lingers in the hearts of those who remember her. The weight of those words is undeniable. The sound of a distant battle, of war and loss is long gone, but her will, her spirit, cannot and will not fade. Her legacy lives on, carried by every person who faces adversity with the same unyielding strength she once did. It is in the hearts of the resistance fighters, in the eyes of the young who salute her in secret, and in the quiet moments of reflection shared by those who rebuild. As the last of her words echoes, a quiet sense of peace settles over the universe. Hale's fight is over, but the fire she lit remains. The human will is eternal.